The archive chamber hummed with ancient power as researcher Taemin ran his scaled fingers across the crystalline data ports. In the 7,000 cycles since the Great Silence, humanity had become nothing more than whispered myths in the outer colonies. The Galactic Coalition spoke of them as one might speak of ghosts, entities that perhaps once existed, but surely not anymore. "Another dead lead," muttered his assistant. HFY, her bioluminescent markings dimming with disappointment. She was young for a Velkari, barely 300 cycles old, and still held hope that the legendary species might be more than children's tales. Taemin didn't share her optimism. The data streams showed the same pattern they always did. Human colonies gone dark, their worlds reclaimed by nature, their stations drifting as tomb ships through the void. Earth itself had been marked as a Class 9 hazard zone for millennia, its star system avoided by all sensible spacers. "The Council wants us to finalize the historical extinction report by next cycle," Taemin said, his mandibles clicking in resignation. "We've searched every database, every fragment of their old networks. They're gone, HFY. It's time we accepted that." But HFY's attention had drifted to a peculiar anomaly in the data stream. "Taemin, look at this. There's a signal, faint, but it's repeating on a pattern that matches old human encryption." "Impossible. The signal probably predates the silence. You know how their abandoned tech sometimes creates ghost transmissions? It's dated 2 cycles ago. The words hung in the recycled air like a physical presence." Taemin's primary heart skipped a beat as he rushed to her station. The data couldn't be falsified. It bore all the authentication markers of a genuine transmission. Someone or something was broadcasting from the Terran exclusion zone. "This changes everything," he breathed. Across the galaxy, in the gleaming spires of the Coalition Central Command, Admiral Kwan Ho received the report with the kind of cold interest reserved for historical curiosities. The Thorian commander had seen 3 wars and countless first contacts, but humans? They were the species that had supposedly burned too bright and faded just as quickly. "Dispatch a scout fleet," he ordered, his 4 eyes gleaming in the command center's harsh lights. "But keep it quiet. If humanity truly has returned, I want to know their capabilities before the whole galaxy starts panicking." The truth was, the old records painted a contradictory picture of humanity. Some depicted them as brilliant innovators, others as reckless warmongers. Most agreed on one thing: they were dangerous in ways the galaxy hadn't quite understood before they vanished. Lieutenant Jiwoo, a young Kelton officer with scales that shifted between blue and silver, accepted the assignment with barely concealed excitement. She had studied the human wars as a cadet, fascinated by their tactical unpredictability and their disturbing tendency to win battles they should have lost. "Prepare the Star Whisper for immediate departure," she commanded her crew. "We're going to see if the ghosts are real." As her ship slipped into the quantum fold, heading toward the coordinates from which the signal originated, Jiwoo reviewed the ancient files one more time. One phrase kept appearing in the military assessments: "Humans do not break. They bend, they adapt, and they endure." She would soon learn just how accurate those assessments were. The destination was a mining colony on the edge of what had been human space, a forgotten rock called Station Talos 9. As they emerged from fold space, Jiwoo's primary sensor officer, a methodical Quarian named Sung Min, immediately detected something wrong. "Commander, there are ships in orbit, not human design, but something else." Reading weapons signatures consistent with Kravik's raiders. The Kraviks were the Coalition's primary threat, a confederation of brutal species that believed in conquest through overwhelming force. They had been expanding aggressively for the past century, and the Coalition had barely held them at bay. What would raiders want with a dead human station? Jiwoo wondered aloud. Her answer came in the form of a distress signal, weak but unmistakably in human standard English, a language she had studied extensively. To any Coalition forces: "This is Station Talos 9. We are under attack. Requesting immediate assistance. Civilian population of 300, mostly researchers and families. The Kraviks want something in our archives. We won't let them have it. If anyone can hear this, please. We're running out of time." The voice was young, female, and carried the unmistakable accent of old Earth recordings. Humans weren't extinct. They were fighting for their lives. Jiwoo's decision took exactly 3 seconds. Battle stations. We're going in. Commander, Sungmin cautioned. There are 5 Kravix destroyers down there. We're just a scout ship. Then we'll have to be creative, Jiwoo replied, her scales flashing to combat crimson. The humans have a saying I've always admired. Fortune favors the bold. As the Star Whisper dove toward the besieged station, none of them knew they were about to witness something the galaxy thought it would never see again. Humanity standing defiant in the face of impossible odds. The fire was about to be lit once more. The station's hull groaned under another barrage as Captain Daun checked her ammunition count for the 5th time in as many minutes. 17 rounds left. She'd need to make every single one count. South Corridor Holding, reported Private J. Sung over the crackling comm, his voice steady despite the chaos. But they're bringing up something heavy. Sounds like a breacher. Daeun allowed herself a grim smile. The Kravix had expected to find frightened researchers and soft civilians. Instead, they'd found the descendants of Earth's survivors, people who'd spent 7,000 years clawing their way back from the brink of extinction. On a dozen forgotten worlds, her grandparents had told her the stories. How Earth had nearly destroyed itself in nuclear fire. How the survivors had scattered to the stars, only to find the galaxy had moved on without them. How they'd hidden, rebuilt, and quietly endured in the shadows of abandoned stations and forgotten colonies the Kravix had made. Their first mistake by assuming human silence meant human weakness. Contact in the archive section. Came another voice, Dr. Hyan, the station's chief researcher. They're trying to breach the vault. The lock won't hold much longer. Daeun's jaw tightened. The vault contained the last complete copy of Earth's historical database, everything from Shakespeare to quantum mechanics, from ancient philosophy to modern genetic research. It was humanity's memory, preserved through millennia of darkness. Seal that section and fall back, she ordered. We can't let them. The station shuddered violently. But this wasn't weapons fire. This was something else. New contact, shouted someone from the command center. Coalition ship, scout class entering atmosphere. They're broadcasting on open channels, demanding the Kravix stand down. Daun felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in days. Hope. Put them through, she commanded. The voice that came over the speakers was crisp, professional, and speaking in perfect standard English, albeit with an accent Daun didn't recognize. Kravix forces, this is Coalition Lieutenant Jiwoo of the Star Whisper. You're in violation of 17 interstellar treaties. Withdraw immediately or face engagement. One of the researchers, a young man named Taiwan, laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. A scout ship? Against 5 destroyers? They're insane. No, Daeun said softly, understanding blooming in her chest. They're buying us time. They know they can't win. They're just showing up anyway. It was the most human thing she'd ever seen aliens do. Above the station, Jiwoo watched her tactical display with the calm of someone who'd already accepted the likely outcome. The Kravix commander was responding, his translation coming through in harsh, guttural bursts. Coalition pest, you have no authority here. This station harbors criminals who possess stolen technology. We claim salvage rights. Depart or be destroyed. Stolen technology. Jiwoo queried the station directly. Station Talos 9, can you clarify? The response came from a different voice this time, older, steadier. This is Captain Daun. We haven't stolen anything. This station and everything in it belongs to us, to humanity. We've been here the whole time, just quiet. The Kravix want our archives because they contain weapons data from the old wars. We'd rather die than give them that. Sungmin looked up from his console, his expression grave. Commander, the lead Kravix destroyer is powering weapons. They're targeting both us and the station. Jiwoo made her decision. All power to shields. Get between them and the station. And someone get Admiral Kwan Ho on subspace immediately. Tell him first contact with humanity just got complicated. The Star Whisper was never designed to be a warship. She was built for speed and sensors, for slipping through fold space and gathering intelligence. Her shields could maybe withstand 2 direct hits from a destroyer's main cannon. Maybe. This is insane, breathed her pilot, a young Kelton named Bora. Probably, Jiwoo agreed, but it's also right. Humanity stood with the Coalition once during the Formation Wars. The least we can do is stand with them now. The first salvo hit their shields like the fist of an angry god. Alarms shrieked as power systems redlined. The second hit followed before they could compensate. "Shields at 20%, Sungmin reported. "One more like that and we're done." But the third shot never came. Instead, space itself seemed to tear open as 3 heavy coalition battlecruisers emerged from fold space, their appearance so sudden and violent that the Kravik's destroyers actually recoiled. "This is Admiral Quan Ho to all ships," the commander's voice boomed across every channel. "The coalition protects its own, and it seems we've just rediscovered some very old friends. Kravik's forces, you have 30 seconds to begin retreat. After that, I will consider your presence an act of war." The Kraviks, brutal as they were, weren't stupid. They recognized a losing position. Within minutes, they were folding out of the system, their retreat hasty and undignified. Jiwoo slumped in her command chair, adrenaline finally catching up with her. "Well," she said to no one in particular, "that worked out better than expected." "Station Talos 9 is hailing us," Bo-Ra reported, her voice tinged with wonder. They're requesting permission to come aboard. Captain Da-un wants to meet us face to face." Jiwoo straightened, smoothing her uniform. "Permission granted. This is about to become the most important first contact in 7,000 years. Someone make sure the conference room is presentable." 30 minutes later, Jiwoo stood face to face with Captain Da-un in the Star Whisper's small conference room. The human was shorter than expected, but carried herself with the bearing of a soldier who'd seen real combat. Her dark eyes assessed Jiwoo with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. "Thank you," Da-un said simply, "for standing in the fire with us." Jiwoo felt her scales shift to a pleased blue. "The coalition doesn't abandon its people. Even if we'd forgotten you were still out there." "We never forgot you," Da-un replied. "We watched. We learned. We prepared for the day we'd be ready to stand alongside you again." She paused, then smiled, a fierce, proud expression. "Looks like that day just arrived." Admiral Quan Ho's hologram flickered into existence. "Captain Da-un, I believe we have much to discuss. Starting with how many of you there actually are." Da-un's smile widened. "Admiral, you're going to want to sit down for this conversation. Humanity didn't go extinct. We just went underground. There are 17 colony worlds, 63 stations, and a fleet we've been building for the past 2,000 years." She paused for effect. "We've been waiting for the galaxy to need us again." The Admiral's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "And you think the galaxy needs you now?" "The Kraviks aren't going to stop at one station," Da-un said, her expression turning serious. "They're testing boundaries, looking for weakness. They'll keep pushing until someone pushes back hard enough to make them stop." She met the Admiral's gaze directly. "We learned a long time ago how to push back, and we're ready to teach you." In the silence that followed, Jiwoo realized she was witnessing history being written in real time. Humanity hadn't just survived, they'd adapted, prepared, and chosen the perfect moment to step back onto the galactic stage. The galaxy thought humans were extinct. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. The Coalition Council chamber fell into stunned silence as the holographic display showed the scope of humanity's hidden presence. Admiral Quan Ho watched as the council members, representatives from 47 species, processed the impossible. "This can't be accurate," sputtered Councillor Rabin, a Quarian whose shell patterns flickered with agitation. "You're telling us that humanity has maintained a fleet of how many ships?" Captain Da-un stood before them, calm and composed despite being surrounded by beings who'd considered her species extinct. 3,000 combat vessels ranging from corvettes to dreadnoughts. Another 5,000 support ships. We've had a lot of time to build, Counselor, and a very good reason to stay quiet while we did." "The Kraviks," murmured Counselor Youngsuk, a Velkari elder whose bioluminescence pulsed thoughtfully. "Among others," Da-un confirmed. "We watched the border conflicts, saw how they tested your defenses, probed for weaknesses. We recognized the pattern because we'd seen it before, in our own history. This is how empire builders operate. They expand until someone makes them stop." Researcher Taemin, who'd been granted a temporary seat for his role in rediscovering humanity, leaned forward. "But why hide? Why not reveal yourselves years ago?" Dan's expression grew distant. "Because the last time humanity stood openly in the galaxy, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Our own weapons, our own hatred, our own pride. When the survivors scattered, they made a pact. Never again would we let ambition outpace wisdom. We would rebuild slowly, carefully. We would watch and learn before we spoke. And now you're ready to speak? Admiral Quan Ho asked. Now we're ready to act, Diane corrected. The Kraviks won't stop at border raids. They're moving toward full-scale invasion. Your intelligence already knows this. What you don't know is how to stop them. The council chamber erupted in protests and questions, but Da-un simply waited. Her patience, the patience of a species that had learned to measure time in millennia rather than decades. Finally, Council Chair Min-ho, an ancient Thorian who'd served for 3 centuries, raised a hand for silence. Captain Da-un, what exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Da-un said simply. Humanity rejoins the coalition, not as the reckless warriors we once were, but as the strategic partners we've become. We share our fleet, our technology, our tactical experience. In return, you give us a seat at the table and remember that we never really left. We just learned to be quiet. Lieutenant Jiwoo, standing at the back of the chamber, felt her scales shift with emotion. She'd studied the old human wars, knew their reputation for both brilliance and brutality. But this human before them was something different, refined by time and isolation into something the galaxy desperately needed. I move to accept, she said, her voice clear despite her junior rank. Heads turned. Protocol violations were one thing, but Jiwoo pressed on. I stood with them in the fire. I saw what one human station could do against impossible odds. Imagine what 3,000 ships could accomplish. She paused. Besides, they came to save us when we needed it most. That's exactly the kind of ally the coalition was built to be. Min-ho's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. An impassioned speech, Lieutenant. But you forget, we don't actually know if we can trust them. 7,000 years is a long time. Species change. Then test us, Da-un offered. The Kraviks are massing at the Helios expanse. Your latest intelligence reports show at least 50 capital ships. Send us there with a coalition task force. Let us prove that humanity remembers how to stand shoulder to shoulder with allies. The council chamber buzzed with discussion. Finally, Admiral Quan Ho spoke. I'll lead the task force personally. Captain Da-un, can you have your fleet at Helios in 3 cycles? Da-un smiled, that same fierce expression Jiwoo had seen before. Admiral, we've been stationed at Helios for the past 2 months. We've been waiting for you to catch up. The revelation sent another wave of shock through the chamber. The humans hadn't just been hiding, they'd been actively protecting coalition, space without anyone knowing. How many of the border incidents that we attributed to technical failures or Kravik's incompetence were actually your interventions? Taemin asked, his researcher's mind already connecting patterns. About 40%, Da-un admitted. We couldn't let them establish a foothold, but we weren't ready to reveal ourselves either. So we operated in the shadows, making their attacks fail in ways that seemed natural. Young-suk's luminescence pulsed rapidly. That's actually brilliant. You've been fighting a shadow war, keeping them off balance without ever showing your hand. We learned from our mistakes, Da-un said quietly. The old humanity would have announced their presence with overwhelming force, demanding respect. The new humanity prefers to earn it through actions, not words. Minister Hyojun, the coalition's defense secretary, spoke up. What kind of weapons are we talking about? The old records mention some rather concerning human innovations. We've kept the knowledge, Da-un acknowledged. The kinetic kill vehicles, the nanoplague protocols, the reality-bending drives. But we've also learned restraint. Every weapon we've built comes with multiple fail-safes, ethical reviews, and strict deployment protocols. We're not the species that nearly destroyed Earth anymore. We're the species that learned from that horror. Show us, Min-ho commanded. Admiral, take your task force to Helios. Captain Da-un, reveal your fleet. Let's see if humanity's bite matches its promises. Da-un nodded. You'll have a front-row seat to the new human way of war, Council Chair. We don't fight like we used to. We're more patient now. More precise, more... She paused, searching for the word. Thorough. As the council session ended and the various representatives filed out, Jiwoo approached Da-un. That was quite the presentation. Thanks for speaking up, Da-un replied. That helped. I meant what I said. You saved my ship, my crew. That matters. Da-un studied the young Kelton officer. You risked everything for people you thought were extinct. That matters too. Maybe that's what the coalition has been missing. People willing to stand in the fire together. Is that what humanity's been doing all this time? Standing in fires? More like learning to walk through them, Da-un said. Come to Helios, Lieutenant. I think you'll find that the old human saying is wrong. Fortune doesn't favor the bold. It favors the prepared. 3 cycles later, the Coalition task force emerged at the Helios expanse to find a site that would be recorded in history texts for generations. Arranged in perfect formation were 3,000 human vessels, each one bearing the mark of a species that had spent millennia refining its craft. But it wasn't just the numbers that took Admiral Quan Ho's breath away. It was the designs. Human ships didn't follow the elegant curves of Velkari vessels or the brutal angles of Kravik's dreadnoughts. They were something else entirely. Functional, adaptable, and somehow alive with potential. "Welcome to the new humanity, Admiral," Dayun's voice came through the comm. "We've been waiting a long time to say this. We're ready to stand with you. All of you, however long it takes, whatever it costs. That's what it means to be human. We endure, we adapt, and we never, ever abandon our allies." As if in response to her words, the Kravik's fleet began to emerge from fold space at the far end of the expanse. 70 ships this time, not 50. They'd brought reinforcements. "Captain Daun," Admiral Quan Ho said calmly, "you mentioned something about the new human way of war?" "I did, Admiral. Watch and learn." The human fleet didn't charge forward in a glorious assault. They didn't unleash devastating weapons or attempt overwhelming force. Instead, they simply moved. Like a living organism, the 3,000 ships flowed into a pattern that seemed to simultaneously threaten the Kraviks. From every angle while protecting the Coalition. Vessels behind them, they're not just fighting, breathed Sungmin from his sensor station. They're dancing. It was true. Every human ship moved in perfect coordination with its neighbors, creating a web of overlapping fields of fire that made any Kravik's advance suicidal while preserving maximum defensive capability. It was the kind of tactical sophistication that came from centuries of study and practice. The Kravik's commander, recognizing he'd walked into something far more dangerous than expected, did the only sensible thing. He retreated, without firing a single shot. Humanity had won its first official engagement in 7,000 years. "Well," Admiral Quan Ho said, allowing himself a small smile, "I think we have our answer. Welcome back, humanity. The galaxy missed you." Dayun's laughter came through the comm, warm and genuine. "Admiral, we never left. We just learned to wait for the right moment. And now we remind the galaxy what humanity does best. Stand together, stand strong, and never back down from the fire." Warlord Draknor slammed his fist against the tactical display, causing the holographic projection to flicker and distort. Around the war room, his general stood in tense silence, none willing to be the first to speak after the disaster at Helios Expanse. "Humans," he growled, his voice like grinding stone. "Dead humans. Extinct humans. Humans who were supposed to be nothing more than cautionary tales to frighten younglings." He turned his massive frame toward Intelligence Chief Vormak. "Explain to me how our intelligence missed 3,000 warships." Vormak, smaller but no less dangerous than his warlord, clicked his mandibles nervously. "They've been hiding, Lord. Operating in sectors we classified as empty, using stealth technology that surpasses our detection capabilities. They've been watching us for, perhaps centuries." "Watching us," Draknor repeated flatly. "While we planned to carve up Coalition space, they were watching us." "It appears so, Lord." The warlord began to pace, his heavy footfalls echoing in the chamber. The old record spoke of human warfare. Brutal, direct, overwhelming. This was something else. That wasn't just a fleet. That was a message. General Haktor, veteran of a dozen campaigns, stepped forward cautiously. "The message being that they could have destroyed us," Draknor said, his tone thoughtful now rather than angry. "Every analysis of that engagement shows we were outmaneuvered, outpositioned, and completely vulnerable. They forced our retreat without firing a shot because they wanted us to know they could have obliterated us. It's psychological warfare of the highest order." Back at Coalition Central Command, similar discussions were taking place, though with considerably less anger and more wonder. "The elegance of it is remarkable," Taimin was explaining to a gathered group of military analysts and researchers. "They didn't just win. They made the Kraviks look like amateurs while simultaneously demonstrating total control. It's the kind of victory that wins hearts and minds." Admiral Quan Ho nodded slowly. "I've been reviewing the tactical recordings. Every movement, every position. It's like watching a master at work." How did they achieve this level of coordination? Captain Daun, present via hologram from her flagship, the Resilience, smiled slightly. 7,000 years of practice, Admiral. When you're hiding from the galaxy, you have a lot of time to drill, train, and perfect your craft. Every simulation, every exercise, every training mission for the past 7 millennia has been preparing us for the moment we'd step back onto the galactic stage. Lieutenant Jiwoo, who'd been promoted to captain after her actions at Talos 9, studied the data streams. But it's more than just training. There's something else. The way your ships move together, it's like they're thinking as one organism. That's closer to the truth than you might think, Daun admitted. We developed what we call the collective tactical network. Every human captain is linked through a quantum-entangled communication system. We don't just coordinate, we share tactical awareness in real time. When one ship sees an opportunity, we all see it. When one faces a threat, we all respond. The implications rippled through the assembled officers. That's beyond anything we've developed, Kwanho said quietly. It required humanity's unique approach to technology, Daun explained. We're not the strongest species or the fastest or the most naturally gifted. What we are is adaptable. We take ideas from everywhere, combine them in new ways, and push until we find something that works. The collective network is built on Velkari quantum theory, Thorian neural networking, and good old human stubbornness. Youngsuk, the Velkari counselor, leaned forward with interest. You've been studying our technologies? Without us knowing? We've been studying everything, Daun said simply. Every species, every innovation, every advancement the Coalition has made. We learned from all of you while you thought we were gone. In a way, you've all been teaching us for millennia. It was researcher Haiwan who voiced what many were thinking. That's incredibly humble for a species that just demonstrated it could probably defeat any fleet in the galaxy. Daun's expression grew serious. That's exactly why we're humble. The old humanity thought they were invincible, and it nearly destroyed them. We've learned that real strength isn't about domination, it's about partnership. We're strong because we learned from you, adapted your best qualities, and combined them with our own. That's the human way now. But while the Coalition marveled at humanity's return, the Kraviks were planning their response. We need to strike before they're fully integrated into the Coalition military structure, General Haktor argued before the War Council. Hit them now, hit them hard, show the galaxy that humans are still vulnerable. Agreed, Draknor rumbled. But we need intelligence first. Formac, I want to know everything about these new humans. Their bases, their supply lines, their weaknesses. Find me something we can exploit. The intelligence chief bowed. I have agents working on it, Lord. However, there's something you should know. We've picked up chatter suggesting that the humans at Helios weren't even their full strength. Silence fell over the war room. Explain, Draknor commanded, his voice dangerously quiet. The 3,000 ships, they appear to be just the expeditionary force. Intelligence suggests the main human fleet is much larger and remains hidden in reserve. Vormak brought up holographic projections. We're estimating anywhere from 8 to 12,000 additional vessels. 15,000 ships, whispered one of the generals. That would make humanity one of the largest military powers in the galaxy. Draknor's laugh was cold and humorless. And they've been hiding this entire time, watching us squabble over territory like children fighting over toys. The humans aren't just back. They're the adults returning to the playground, and we're about to learn why the galaxy was terrified of them in the first place. So we retreat? Hakator asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Absolutely not, Draknor said, his eyes gleaming with dangerous purpose. But we do adapt. The humans think they've learned from their mistakes? So have we. We don't need to beat their fleet directly. We need to make the Coalition question whether humanity is the ally they think it is. Across the galaxy, on a hidden human colony world called New Haven, a different kind of meeting was taking place. President Sora, elected leader of the Human Federation, addressed her council with grave concern. The Kraviks will retaliate, she stated flatly. Not with ships, they know that's a losing proposition now. They'll attack our credibility, try to paint us as the warmongers we used to be. Let them try, growled Admiral Dongmin, commander of the reserve fleet. We've proven ourselves, have we? Sora challenged. We've shown we can move ships impressively and bluff successfully. But we haven't actually fought yet. When the real battle comes, when human weapons are used in anger for the first time in millennia, Will the galaxy still trust us? Or will they remember the old stories about human warfare? The chamber fell quiet, the weight of 7,000 years of redemption suddenly feeling fragile. We knew this day would come, said Elder Byung-ho, one of the oldest humans alive, a direct descendant of Earth's survivors. The moment we revealed ourselves, we accepted the burden of our history. The question is, can we prove we've truly changed, not just in tactics, but in spirit? We can, Captain Da-eun's voice came through the communication system. Because this time, we're not fighting for conquest or pride. We're fighting for something the old humanity never quite understood. Family. The coalition is our family now. Every species, every world. And humans protect their family no matter the cost. Sora nodded slowly. Then that's our message. Not that we're powerful, but that we're loyal. Not that we're fearsome, but that we're steadfast. She turned to her military commanders. Prepare the fleet for full deployment. When the Kraviks make their move, and they will, we need to be ready to show the galaxy exactly what humanity has become. Admiral Dong Min saluted. 7,000 years we've waited for this moment, Madam President. 7,000 years to prove that humanity deserved a second chance. We won't waste it. As the meeting adjourned and the preparations began, one truth became clear to all involved. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. Not the return of humanity's legendary warfare, but the debut of something far more powerful. Humanity's legendary loyalty, refined by millennia of isolation into an unbreakable bond. The Kraviks were planning their attack. The coalition was preparing its defenses. And humanity? Humanity was about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the greatest weapon isn't the one that destroys, but the one that protects. The fire was coming, and this time, humanity wouldn't stand in it alone. The Crimson Nebula had earned its name from the distinctive red gases that swirled through its expanse, remnants of a star that had died 10 million years ago. It was beautiful, haunting, and about to become the site of the largest military engagement in 1,000 years. Kravik's fleet detected, reported Ensign Il-sung from his sensor station aboard the Resilience. 140 vessels. They're not hiding this time, Captain. Captain Da-eun studied the tactical display with the calm of someone who'd prepared for this moment her entire life. Around her, the human expeditionary fleet held position alongside coalition forces, a combined armada of over 4,000 ships representing 17 different species. They want to fight, Admiral Kwan-ho observed from his flagship, the Eternal Vigil. A decisive battle to prove the Helios engagement was a fluke. They'll get their fight, Da-eun replied, but not the one they're expecting. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to demonstrate something we've been developing. Captain Jiwoo, now commanding the coalition destroyer Pathfinder, listened intently as Da-eun outlined her plan. It was audacious, risky, and utterly human in its scope. You're certain this will work? Kwan-ho asked. No, Da-eun admitted honestly. But humanity has never let uncertainty stop us from trying. That's kind of our thing. The Kravik's fleet advanced in their traditional formation, a hammer blow designed to shatter enemy lines through sheer, overwhelming force. Warlord Draknor himself commanded from his flagship, the inevitable Conquest, confident that numerical superiority and raw firepower would carry the day. The humans will try their coordination tricks again, he told his generals. But this time we're ready. We'll target their communication nodes, break their network, reduce them to individual ships fighting alone. It was a sound strategy. It would have worked against any other opponent, but humanity had learned something crucial during their long isolation. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know exists. Initiating Echo Protocol? Da-eun announced calmly as the Kravik's fleet entered weapons range. Across the human fleet, every ship activated a system that had never been used in actual combat. Developed over centuries of research into quantum mechanics and spatial manipulation, the Echo Protocol did something remarkable. It made each human ship appear to be in 3 places at once. What in the... Draknor's weapons officer stammered as his targeting systems went haywire. They're everywhere. I'm reading 12,000 contacts, but there were only 3,000 ships. Holographic projections, Draknor snarled. Find the real vessels and fire. But the Echo Protocol wasn't simple holography. Each quantum echo was solid enough to register on sensors, to reflect energy weapons, to appear completely real until the moment an attack would connect. Only then would it dissipate, revealing itself as a phantom. They're making us waste ammunition on ghosts, General Hector realized with growing dread. Meanwhile, the real human ships moved through the chaos like wraiths, their true positions masked by their own echoes. When they fired with precision, targeting weapon systems, engines, command centers. Not to kill, but to disable. They're not trying to destroy us, Vormak reported, his voice tinged with confusion. They're systematically crippling our fleet. Jiwoo watched from the Pathfinder, her scales shifting through colors of amazement. They're removing threats without taking lives. That's warfare as surgery, not slaughter. Tae-min, observing from a coalition science vessel, was recording everything. This changes everything we know about military doctrine. They're not winning through force, they're winning through precision and restraint. But the Kraviks weren't finished. Draknor had one final card to play. Release the swarm, he commanded. From the bellies of the Kraviks, dreadnoughts poured thousands of automated drone fighters, cheap, disposable, and programmed with one purpose: overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers. Against most fleets, the swarm was unstoppable. There were simply too many targets to track, too many vectors to defend. Against humanity's collective tactical network, it was a mistake. Interesting, Da-un murmured, watching the drones approach. They think quantity beats quality. Commander Park, if you please. Commander Junwoo Park, tactical officer aboard the Resilience, smiled. Initiating Cascade Defense Grid. Every human ship simultaneously activated point defense systems that had been designed for exactly this scenario. But rather than each ship defending itself, the collective network allowed them to function as a single unified defense grid. When one ship's weapons tracked a drone, every nearby ship knew instantly and adjusted their targeting to different threats. The result was breathtaking. The drone swarm flew into what appeared to be empty space and simply ceased to exist, picked apart by overlapping fields of fire so perfectly coordinated that not a single shot was wasted. In less than 30 seconds, 5,000 drones were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Impossible, Draknor breathed. Very possible. Dayun's voice came through the command channel, broadcast openly so all could hear. Warlord Draknor, you've now witnessed what humanity has become. We don't seek to dominate. We don't desire conquest. But we will protect those who stand with us. And we will do so with a level of precision and capability that makes conventional warfare obsolete. She paused, letting her words sink in across both fleets. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are alive, not dead. This is your one opportunity to retreat with honor. The next time we meet, if you come as enemies, we will not be so gentle. This is not a threat, it's a promise. Humanity has learned mercy, but we have not forgotten strength. The Kravik's fleet, crippled but intact, began its withdrawal. Draknor's mandibles clicked in frustration, but beneath the anger was something else: respect. The humans had proven themselves not just as warriors, but as something more evolved. As the battle concluded without a single loss of life on either side, the coalition fleet erupted in celebration. But aboard the human ships there was only quiet satisfaction. We did it, Captain Da-yun said softly to her crew. We proved that humanity has changed, that we can be strong without being cruel, decisive without being destructive. Admiral Kwan Ho's hologram appeared before her. Captain Da-yun, on behalf of the coalition, I must say, that was the most remarkable military operation I've ever witnessed. You didn't just win a battle, you changed how war itself is conceived. That was always the goal, Admiral, Da-yun replied. The old humanity believed victory meant dominating the enemy. The new humanity understands that true victory means you don't create new enemies in the process of defeating old ones. Jiwoo, joining the communication from the Pathfinder, added her perspective. The entire galaxy is watching this, you know. The recordings are being transmitted across every inhabited system. Humanity's reputation just transformed from dangerous relics to the fleet we want on our side. Good, Da-un said. Because we're going to need everyone on the same side. The Kraviks won't stop, they'll adapt, evolve their tactics. But so will we. That's what humanity does best. We adapt, we endure, and we protect those who can't protect themselves. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, as his fleet limped away from the Crimson Nebula, Warlord Draknor studied the after-action reports with new eyes. They could have destroyed us, he said to his assembled command staff. Easily, instead they sent us home with a message. What message, Lord? General Hector asked. that the age of conquest through force is over, that humanity has shown there's a better way. Draknor's expression was unreadable. The question is, are we wise enough to learn from it? Back at Coalition Central Command, Council Chair Minho addressed the full assembly. Today, humanity proved what they've been trying to tell us all along. They're not the species that nearly destroyed themselves 7,000 years ago. They're the species that learned from that horror and became something better. The motion before us is simple. Does humanity deserve full membership in the coalition? The vote was unanimous. As the news spread across human worlds, celebrations erupted. Not because they'd won a battle, but because they'd finally, after 7 millennia of isolation and preparation, been welcomed home. President Sora, addressing her people from New Haven, spoke words that would be remembered for generations. We were once a species that stood alone, proud and terrible in our power. We nearly destroyed ourselves in that pride, but in our darkest hour we learned the most important lesson. That true strength comes not from standing above others, but from standing beside them. Today we don't just rejoin the galactic community, we help redefine what that community can be. Elder Byung-ho, watching the celebrations with tears in his ancient eyes, turned to the young ones around him. Remember this day. Remember that our ancestors' sacrifice, their choice to hide rather than repeat their mistakes, led to this moment. We are humanity's second chance. Let's make sure we don't need a third. The Crimson Nebula would be remembered as the place where humanity announced its return, not with a bang, but with precision, not with conquest, but with protection, not with the old ways of war, but with a new doctrine of defense. The galaxy had thought humanity was extinct. They were about to learn that humanity had been in chrysalis, transforming into something the universe had never seen before. Warriors who fought for peace, soldiers who valued all life, and a species whose greatest weapon was no longer their capacity for destruction, but their unwavering commitment to stand in the fire for those they called allies. The fire had come. Humanity had stood firm, and in doing so they'd shown the galaxy a new way forward. 3 months after the Battle of Crimson Nebula, the galaxy had settled into a new reality. Humanity wasn't just back. They were integral to the fabric of coalition space, their presence woven into military doctrine, diplomatic relations, and the very concept of galactic security. Captain Da-Yun stood in the observation deck of Gateway Station, the massive orbital platform that served as humanity's official embassy to the coalition. Through the viewport, she watched as human and alien vessels moved in coordinated patterns, practicing the new joint tactical maneuvers that were quickly becoming standard across all coalition fleets. Penny, for your thoughts? Lieutenant Ji Woo, now permanently assigned as liaison between human and coalition forces, approached with 2 cups of what humans called coffee, a beverage that had become surprisingly popular among several alien species. Just thinking about how far we've come, Da-Un replied, accepting the cup with a grateful nod. A year ago we were ghosts. Now look at us, training coalition crews, sharing technology, building a future together. Jiwoo's scales shifted to a warm orange, the Kelton expression of contentment. You've changed the entire galaxy's approach to conflict. 5 major border disputes have been resolved through negotiation in the past month alone. Everyone's too busy trying to emulate human tactics to bother fighting. That was always the dream, Da-Yun said softly. Not to be the strongest, but to make strength less necessary. Across the station, in the Cultural Exchange Center, researcher Tae-min was giving a lecture to a mixed audience of humans and aliens about the rediscovery of humanity. His assistant, Hae-won, projected holographic images as he spoke. What we initially failed to understand, Tae-min explained, was that humanity never truly left us. They were always there, in the shadows, learning from our successes and our failures. In a way, they became a synthesis of everything the coalition represented, filtered through their unique perspective. An elderly Thorian in the audience raised a claw. But what about their infamous aggression? The old records suggest humans were prone to violence. Tae-min smiled. They were. But they were also prone to learning. That's the real human trait. Not violence, but adaptability. When they realized their aggression was self-destructive, they adapted. They didn't eliminate the trait. They refined it, focused it, made it serve a higher purpose. Now that aggression manifests as fierce loyalty and unwavering protection of allies, Hae-won added, It's like they took their capacity for warfare and evolved it into a capacity for guardianship. Same intensity, different application. Meanwhile, in the Kravix territories, a transformation of a different sort was taking place. Warlord Draknor had called for a council of all Kravix leaders, an unprecedented gathering that spoke to the magnitude of what he was proposing. For generations, we have believed that strength means conquest, he addressed the assembly. That power is measured in subjugation. The humans have shown us something different, that true power lies in partnership, in precision, in the ability to win without destroying. You speak of surrender? One warlord challenged. I speak of evolution, Draknor corrected. The humans nearly destroyed themselves with their old ways. They survived by changing. We can learn from their example, or we can continue down a path that the Crimson Nebula proved is obsolete. The debate raged for days. But slowly, reluctantly, the Kravix leadership began to see the wisdom in Draknor's words. A formal petition was sent to the coalition requesting not conquest or surrender, but dialogue. Admiral Quan Ho reviewed the petition with surprise and approval. They want to discuss peace terms. True peace, not just a cessation of hostilities. President Sora, present via hologram, nodded thoughtfully. This is humanity's real victory. Not defeating the Kravix in battle, but inspiring them to choose a different path. Should we trust them? Counselor Youngsuk asked, her bioluminescence flickering with uncertainty. Trust is earned, Dawn interjected, but so is the opportunity to earn it. We extend the hand of partnership and see if they grasp it. That's what humanity does. We believe in second chances because we needed one ourselves. The peace negotiations took place on neutral ground, a space station in unclaimed territory. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Wan Shik, a diplomat who had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. Warlord Draknor faced him across the negotiating table, and for a long moment, the two simply studied each other, warrior recognizing warrior. Your species could have annihilated mine, Draknor said finally. Why didn't you? Because annihilation solves nothing, Wan Shik replied. We learned that lesson in Blood and Fire millennia ago. Every enemy you destroy is a potential ally you've lost. Every culture you erase is wisdom that could have enriched the galaxy. We fight when we must, but we'd rather build what? A future where strength is measured not by what you can destroy, but by what you can protect. Where different species, different cultures, different ways of thinking come together to create something greater than any could achieve alone. Wan Shik leaned forward. The coalition isn't perfect. Humanity certainly isn't. But together we're learning. Will you learn with us? The treaty that emerged from those negotiations would reshape galactic politics for centuries. The Kravix wouldn't join the coalition immediately. There was too much history, too many wounds to heal. But they agreed to demilitarize border regions, establish trade relations, and begin cultural exchanges. It was a start. On Gateway Station, as news of the treaty spread, spontaneous celebrations erupted. Humans danced with Velkari, Kelton officers shared drinks with Quarian scholars, and for perhaps the first time in recorded history, the galaxy truly felt united. Captain Jiwoo found Da-un in the observation deck once more, watching the festivities below. We did it, Jiwoo said simply. Your species really did change everything. Not just us, Da-un corrected gently. You stood with us at Talos 9 when you had every reason to walk away. Admiral Quan Ho gave us a chance when others wanted us to remain hidden. Researcher Taman never stopped believing we existed. This isn't humanity's victory, it's everyone's. Always so humble, Jiwoo said with amusement. Humility is the price of our second chance, Da-un replied. We never forget that we were nearly extinct because of our own pride. Every day we exist is a gift, and every ally we make is a treasure. That's not humility, that's gratitude. Elder Byung-ho, now the oldest living human at over 200 years, addressed a gathering of younglings on New Haven. Children of every species sat before him, their faces rapt with attention. You asked me what it means to be human, he said, his voice still strong despite his age. For 7,000 years we've been trying to answer that question. We've learned that it doesn't mean being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. Being human means standing up when others fall. It means learning from mistakes, no matter how terrible. It means believing that tomorrow can be better than today, and being willing to work for it. A young Velkari child raised her hand. But Elder, don't all species do those things? Byung-ho smiled, his eyes crinkling with warmth. Exactly right, little one. That's the final lesson humanity learned. What makes us special isn't that we're different from everyone else, it's that we're the same. We all love, we all fear, we all hope. We all make mistakes, and we all deserve the chance to do better. That's why we stand in the fire together. Because in the end, we're all just people trying to make our way in a vast and sometimes frightening universe. And it's a lot less frightening when we face it as family. Years passed. The peace with the Kraviks deepened into genuine alliance. Humanity's tactical innovations became standard across the galaxy, but they were adapted, improved, made uniquely suitable for each species. The Echo Protocol was combined with Thorian shield technology. The collective tactical network incorporated Velkari quantum theories. Human ship designs merged with Kelton engineering aesthetics. The galaxy wasn't becoming human. It was becoming something better, a true coalition where each species contributed their strengths and supported each other's weaknesses. Captain Da-Yun, now promoted to admiral and commanding the entire human expeditionary fleet, stood once more in an observation deck, this time on the newly commissioned station Unity 1, built cooperatively by 17 species in the heart of what had once been contested space. Beside her stood Admiral Kwan Ho, now retired but still respected as the leader who had welcomed humanity home. "Do you ever think about that day at Talos 9? Da-Yun asked. "When we sent out that distress signal, we didn't know if anyone would come. And when I sent Jiwoo's scout ship, I didn't know if we'd find anything but ruins," Kwan Ho replied. "But we both had faith. Faith that the galaxy still had room for hope, for second chances, for species that refused to give up on each other. To them, humanity was only fated lore," Da-Yun quoted softly, remembering the old perceptions. "Until you stood in the fire," Kwan Ho completed, "and showed us all what it really means to be strong. Not through conquest or domination, but through loyalty, adaptation, and an unbreakable commitment to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Da-Yun looked out at the assembled fleet, thousands of ships from dozens of species, all flying in perfect formation. Human vessels alongside alien ones, no distinction between them except the unique beauty each design